Welcome to Just Roots Make Your Own Homemade Salad Dressings workshop. In this video, we'll discuss salad dressing staples to keep in your fridge and pantry, and we'll demonstrate how to make 4 delicious and simple salad dressings: miso, carrot, ginger, traditional Caesar, creamy tahini balsamic, and a classic Greek dressing. Check out the video description to skip ahead to the demonstrations. Making your own salad dressing is a cost-effective and healthier alternative to buying store-bought dressings. You'll use fresher ingredients, you won't be ingesting preservatives, additives, dyes, or thickeners, and it's easy. Most salad dressings involve 3 to 5 ingredients, and you can simply blend them together. Let's take a look at some helpful pantry items you can stock in your kitchen so you can make homemade salad dressings whenever you please. Starting with acidity. Vinegars and citrus fruit provide the acidity and brightness to most salad dressings. I keep apple cider vinegar, which we have a video on how to make your own from apple scraps. I use red wine vinegar, rice vinegar, white wine vinegar, balsamic vinegar, and I often have lemons and limes in my pantry. I use these acidic notes interchangeably. If you want a lighter vinegar flavor, try rice vinegar. If you want a fruity, sweet dressing, try citrus or balsamic vinegar. White vinegar works too. I love using fresh or dried alliums in my salad dressings for both flavor and sharpness. Garlic, green garlic, ramps, shallots, onions, and scallions are all excellent additions to salad dressings. Careful not to use too much, as their flavors can be quite overpowering when used raw. Next up is oil. Oil acts as a base and a balancer in salad dressings. I use canola oil or any neutral oil for light dressings. Extra virgin olive oil is best for vinaigrettes. I like to use regular cooking olive oil or mild flavored oils like avocado oil. Avoid using strong flavors like coconut oil and flaxseed oil. You can really use any spices in your salad dressing depending on the type of salad you're making. My go-tos are dried Italian seasoning, rosemary, peppercorns or black pepper, garlic powder in place of fresh alliums, or oregano leaves, dill weed, fresh minced ginger, or even powdered dried ginger. Next are some optional flavor enhancers. I like to use sesame oil, soy sauce, honey, tahini, which is made from ground sesame seeds, and sugar quite a bit. Fresh herbs make an excellent addition when you have access to them. You certainly don't have to keep all of these items stocked in your pantry, but it's really helpful to be able to mix and match and be able to create more variety in your salad dressing repertoire. Let's get started with our first dressing. We'll be making miso carrot ginger, which is often found in Japanese restaurants. We're going to go ahead and get started with 1 large or 2 medium carrots, and I'm just cutting off the ends. And folks, I'll be using a food processor for all of these dressings. I'm going to start by peeling those carrots just to get the outer skin off. These are storage carrots, so they're a little bit wilty. This is a great use for them. You'll just want to chop them roughly into some pieces so that it's easier to process them in a food processor. After chopping, I ended up with roughly 1 cup of carrots, for those who like to measure. I'm going to use 1-inch knob of ginger, so I'm going to cut that off and then I'm going to get to peeling it. Now, if you don't have fresh ginger, you can also use like a 1/4 to a 1/2 teaspoon of dry ginger. Notice I'm using a spoon. I think this is a really easy way to get the skin off, but you can also use a vegetable peeler or a paring knife. Go ahead and cut that ginger up into a few slices, like little small rounds, so that they blend evenly with the carrots. Toss them in that bowl. Next, you're going to want to use some alliums, so you can use 2 to 3 large scallions, or if you don't have scallions, you can use 1/4 of a white onion. I'm going to use both the greens and the whites of the scallion, so use it all up. That made just under a full cup. I added that to the carrots and ginger. Now we're going to blend it all up, so use a food processor and we're going to grate it till it's like a paste-like consistency. Once you have your paste, it's time to add in some of our extra seasonings. I like to do 1 tablespoon of sugar. I'm just using regular white granulated sugar. 2 tablespoons of white miso. I think it's better than using dark miso, which tends to have a heavier flavor. We can season with 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We'll also use some sesame oil, which can be a bit overpowering, so I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of sesame oil. This recipe uses rice vinegar, which is nice and light. We'll use a 1/2 cup of rice vinegar. You can always add more if you want it more vinegary, or if you want more of a liquid consistency. And a 1/4 cup of neutral oil. I think I use canola oil or vegetable oil. That'll be great. Season with pepper to taste, maybe an 1/8 teaspoon, more if you'd like more. You can also try using white pepper, which is really delicious. At this point, you can blend it all up and give it a taste. See if you want to add anything else, like maybe another 1/4 teaspoon of salt, or maybe a teaspoon of soy sauce if you want more umami flavor. Maybe it's even more vinegar for you. Use your best judgment. And go ahead and pour it into a mason jar or some kind of container with a lid. I like to use mine within a week, but you can also stick it in the freezer if you'd like. Enjoy. Next, we're going to make a traditional Caesar dressing, and this is using egg yolks. So if you don't want raw egg yolks, this might not be the recipe for you. Instead of using 2 egg yolks like in the recipe, I would use about a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise. Let's start by peeling 3 large cloves of garlic, so we'll get those skins off. And we're going to food process that garlic so it's broken into small pieces. We're going to grab 2 of the egg yolks. We're going to separate the whites from those eggs just like this and put those into the food processor as well. So 2 egg yolks. Next up is anchovies in oil. So I'm going to use about 6 of them, but if you're not a big fan, maybe don't use them or just use 1 or 2. But the traditional recipe I'm following uses a whole 6, so I'm just kind of guesstimating what that is. Next up, we're going to juice 1/2 of a lemon into the food processor. Ideally, after being pressed, that makes about 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Add it to the food processor, and let's go ahead and blend. I like to blend it for about a minute at this point to get everything mixed up and immersed with one another. Now we'll add some more flavorings. We'll start with 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. It gives it a little kick. I think I did a little more than 2 teaspoons, but I'm a big fan of mustard in my salad dressing. Now I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of extra virgin olive oil. So I'm actually only going to do 1/4 a cup at a time. So I'm going to blend it, and then I'll add the other 1/4 cup. And then we're going to get ready to grate some Parmesan cheese. I used a vegan Parmesan because I can't have dairy. And you can do anywhere from a 1/4 to a 1/2 cup of grated Parmesan. Go ahead and blend that again before we get our final result. I think I did this for about 30 seconds or something to finish it off. And then same thing, let's have a taste and see if we want to add more salt, pepper, any acidity. One of my favorite things to add to Caesar dressing are capers. So I'm going to use maybe about like a teaspoon and a half. If you don't have capers, you can use more salt if you want more salt to taste. I'm also going to add in about a 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper. The dressing will thicken on its own in the fridge as it sits for a little bit, but there's your traditional Caesar. I like to use this one within 3 days because there's raw egg in it. I hope you enjoy. Next up is a creamy balsamic tahini dressing. This is one of my favorite dressings. We're going to get started again with some garlic. We're going to use 2 large cloves of garlic and then about a 1/4 cup of balsamic vinegar. And you may want to add more vinegar, you may not. This is a thicker dressing, so if you want to thin it out, you can add water or vinegar. Next up is our oil. I'm just using regular cooking extra virgin olive oil. I'm going to use a 1/2 cup. So we'll go ahead and get that in the food processor. Doesn't really matter what oil you use. Canola would be fine too. Go ahead and blend that up. Probably already going to start to look creamy because of the olive oil, and we haven't even added the tahini yet. So now we're going to use 3 tablespoons of tahini, and you're really going to want to mix that up. The oil tends to separate from the seed. So I did a nice mixing there, and I'm going to use 3 whole tablespoons. I think this dressing is best with maple syrup, but I didn't have any, so I used 1.5 tablespoons of honey. And this is actually a ginger honey, and I had it and it was in liquid form, so I thought, why not? So any honey, maple, or ginger honey would be great. Then I'm going to add in 1 tablespoon of that Dijon mustard, which I'm having trouble getting out. And this is optional, but I think it's really good. A 1/2 teaspoon of soy and a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, or if you're not using the soy, use 1 whole teaspoon of salt. I just think the soy sauce pairs really well. Go ahead and add black pepper to taste. I think probably about an 1/8 teaspoon should be good. And then, of course, give it another blend. At this point, you can taste it. See if you'd like to add more water. If you don't want it as thick and creamy, you can add water or more of the balsamic vinegar. I like to use 1/4 cup at a time of warm water till I get to my desired consistency. And just like always, you can store it in a mason jar or something with a lid. Look how creamy that is. Ah, so good. This one I really like to have over cabbage salad. Like I grated up some cabbage and carrots and radishes, but it's really delicious paired with fruit salads, anything like that. We saved the simplest for last, and honestly, this is one of my favorite go-to dressings, Greek dressing. I'm going to get started with the shallot. If you don't have a shallot, you can use onion. So this is the allium component, and I'm going to just get it diced up enough that it's easy to food process. And I'm just going to use 1 small clove of garlic for this recipe. This is a bit smaller of a batch than the other ones that we're doing. I'm going to get those processed first into tiny pieces or minced. You can mince it by hand too if you're making this by hand. And then I'm going to add in my olive oil. I just used regular kind of cooking olive oil, extra virgin. And there is 1/4 cup. The key ingredient for this Greek dressing is the red wine vinegar. Can't get enough. We're going to do a couple tablespoons of red wine vinegar, and know if you like a really vinegary dressing, you can always add more. There's no problem in that. So right there, I'm at about 3 tablespoons. Then I'm going to use some Dijon mustard. We've been using that a lot lately. It's one of our kitchen staples too. I just did a little squirt of that, probably like in between a 1/4 and an 1/8 teaspoon. I did a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm also going to add some black pepper, about an 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper. And then another very important ingredient is oregano. So I think what I have here is about 1 whole tablespoon of oregano. It's dried oregano. You could use fresh too, but a lot less because it's powerful. Then you're going to blend this up, and it's going to be kind of a pink color because of the mix of the shallot and the vinegar. This dressing can keep a couple weeks in your fridge. It's kind of creamy on its own because of the olive oil. It's really delicious on a salad with grilled chicken breasts, feta cheese, lots of peppers and onions and olives. I hope you enjoy. Thanks for joining Just Roots Workshop for Make Your Own Salad Dressings. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me, Brooke at justroots.org. We'll see you next time.